He stood frozen at the edge of the dusty street, his eyes locked on a man bent under the hood of a rusted car. The heat was unforgiving, the air heavy with the smell of burnt oil and the sound of metal tools striking against stubborn bolts. For a moment, Ibrahim Traoré thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. But then the man straightened, wiping the sweat from his brow with hands darkened by grease, and the truth struck harder than any memory ever could. It was him. It was a boy who once shared his bread during the days when both of them had nothing. Before I tell you what happened next, subscribe so you do not miss what came after this moment. Years ago, in the narrow alleys of their childhood neighborhood, they had shared dreams bigger than their surroundings. They spoke of building something great, of escaping the choking grip of poverty, of one day lifting others out with them. But the roads they walked had forked, and while Ibrahim's path took him into the spotlight, his friend's trail seemed to vanish into the dust of forgotten places. Now, in front of him, that same friend was hunched over the engine of a stranger's car, wearing a shirt so worn it could barely hold itself together. The sight did not match the image that lived in Ibrahim's mind. This was not how it was supposed to be. He felt a knot form in his stomach, not from shame, not from pride, but from a collision of the past and the present in a way he had never expected. Ibrahim stepped forward, but the sound of his shoes crunching on gravel made his friend look up before he could speak. For a split second, recognition flashed in the mechanic's eyes, followed by something else, hesitation, maybe even fear. The smile Ibrahim had prepared faded slightly, replaced by a cautious expression. "You," his friend said quietly, as if unsure the man before him was real. His voice carried the weight of years. "It has been a long time." "Yes," Ibrahim replied, his own voice steady but his chest tight. "Too long." There was a pause, long enough for the wind to sweep a sheet of newspaper down the street. And then his friend returned to the engine, tightening a bolt as though he had not just seen a ghost from his past. The distance between them now felt far greater than the few steps separating their bodies. Something in Ibrahim told him this was not the moment to speak of the past or of lost years. But then, he noticed something. There was a child sitting quietly in the shadow of the workshop, her small hands clutching a worn schoolbook. She looked up at him with curious eyes, and in that moment, Ibrahim understood this meeting was about to take a turn he could never have predicted. Ibrahim's eyes lingered on the little girl in the shadows. Her hair was tied into a loose braid, strands escaping to frame a face that looked far too serious for her age. She kept her gaze fixed on him for a moment, then quickly lowered it to the book in her lap, pretending to read. The sight pulled at something deep inside him. Children were supposed to laugh, to run, to play, not to sit silently in the corner of a dim workshop. He stepped closer, his shadow stretching across the floor until it reached her. The child shifted uncomfortably, clutching the book tighter, but she did not move away. "Is she your daughter?" Ibrahim asked, his voice directed to the man still working under the hood. The mechanic stopped for a second, his hands frozen mid-motion, before answering without looking up. "She is mine." His tone was simple, but Ibrahim could hear the pride beneath the tiredness. Ibrahim crouched slightly, trying to meet the girl's eyes. "What is your name?" he asked softly. She hesitated, glancing toward her father for approval. Only when he gave a small nod did she reply. "Amina." Her voice was small, but clear enough to carry a quiet strength. A strange silence followed, the kind where unspoken stories hang heavy in the air. Ibrahim wanted to ask more, but the look in his friend's eyes stopped him. There was something there, something guarded, as though every question might touch an old wound. The mechanic finally wiped his hands on a rag, tossed it onto the workbench, and faced him fully. "Why are you here, Ibrahim?" The question was not asked in anger, but in a tone that demanded truth. Ibrahim opened his mouth to speak, but the words felt too small for the moment. He wanted to say he had been passing by. He wanted to say fate had brought him here. But instead, he found himself asking, "Do you ever think about back then?" His friend's jaw tightened. "Back then is gone. All that matters now is keeping the roof from falling in and the food on the table." The answer stung more than Ibrahim expected. He looked around the workshop, rusted shelves lined with mismatched tools, walls stained with years of labor, and a half-broken fan turning lazily in the corner. This was not the place where dreams survived. This was the place where they came to die quietly. Amina closed her book and stood up, walking to the doorway. She watched the street outside, as though she knew her father's words had ended the conversation. But Ibrahim could not leave it there. "I want to help," he said firmly. His friend's eyes narrowed. "Help comes with a price, and I cannot pay it." Before Ibrahim could reply, a loud crash echoed from somewhere in the back of the workshop. Amina flinched, and her father's face changed instantly, from guarded to alarmed. Without another word, he rushed toward the sound, leaving Ibrahim standing frozen, wondering what could possibly be hidden behind that closed door. The crash still echoed in Ibrahim's ears as he hurried after his friend. The smell of oil and metal grew sharper as they approached the back of the workshop. Amina stood frozen near the doorway, her small fingers gripping the wooden frame so tightly that her knuckles turned pale. Her father reached the back room first and pushed the door open with force. Inside, the dim light revealed a scene Ibrahim had not expected. Against the far wall stood an old wooden cabinet, its doors flung wide open. On the floor, shattered glass and scattered coins glittered faintly in the dusty light. Beside it, a thin boy, no older than 12, was crouched, his hands trembling over the mess he had just made. The mechanic's voice was low but sharp. "I told you not to touch this, Malik." The boy's eyes darted between the man and Ibrahim, panic clear in them. I only wanted to see how much we had," he stammered. Ibrahim stepped forward slowly, his eyes scanning the scene. This was no ordinary spill of coins. Among them were faded photographs, folded letters, and a single rusted key. They looked too personal to be hidden with loose change. "Is this your son?" Ibrahim asked quietly. The mechanic's shoulders stiffened. "No," he replied after a pause. "He is someone I am looking after." Malik kept his head down, but Ibrahim could see the fear in his posture. This was not the kind of fear a child had for breaking something. This was the kind that came from a life lived in uncertainty. The mechanic began picking up the coins and papers, muttering under his breath. Malik scrambled to help, but his hands moved faster toward the rusted key than toward the scattered money. He slipped it into his pocket so quickly that Ibrahim almost missed it. Almost. Ibrahim said nothing, but his mind sharpened. Why would a boy hide a key? And why did the man he once knew as fearless avoid even looking in that direction? Amina stepped in hesitantly. "Baba, is everything all right?" she asked. "Yes," her father replied quickly, forcing a smile. "Go outside, both of you." Malik obeyed, but Ibrahim could see the reluctance in his steps. Once the children were gone, Ibrahim crossed his arms. "That boy just hid something from you, and you let him." The mechanic's expression hardened. Some truths are better left where they are. Ibrahim did not answer, but he knew the man was wrong. Truth had a way of finding its way out, no matter how deep it was buried. And whatever that key opened, Ibrahim was beginning to suspect it was at the center of why his old friend's life had taken such a dark turn. From outside, the sound of a truck pulling up broke the silence. The mechanic glanced toward the door, his face changing again, this time to something Ibrahim could only describe as dread. The rumble of the truck's engine grew louder until it stopped right outside the workshop. Dust swirled in through the open doorway, and Amina instinctively stepped back while Malik froze near the wall. Ibrahim noticed the mechanic's posture stiffen, his hands curling into fists as if bracing for something inevitable. Two men climbed out of the truck. They were not customers. Their eyes scanned the workshop quickly before locking on the mechanic. Both wore the same faded brown jackets, the kind that carried no logos but spoke of belonging to a group no one dared to name. One of them, a tall man with a scar running from his temple to his jaw, smirked when he saw Ibrahim. "New face," the scarred man said, his voice low and slow. "You must be an old friend." Ibrahim did not respond. The mechanic stepped forward, blocking the men's view of the children. "You were not supposed to come today," he said firmly. The shorter man shrugged. "Plans change. The debt does not." Ibrahim felt the weight of the words settle in the room. "Debt!" It explained the guarded look in his friend's eyes, the worn-down state of the workshop, and perhaps even the reason Malik hid that key. Scarface stepped closer, his boots grinding against the gravel floor. "We came for the payment. Unless you have it ready, we will have to take something else." His gaze shifted toward the doorway where Amina and Malik stood. The mechanic's tone hardened. "You will not touch them." Scarface chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "Then give us what you owe." Ibrahim finally spoke. How much? The mechanic shot him a sharp look, silently warning him to stay out of it. But Scarface grinned, sensing an opportunity. Enough to keep this place running for a year, or enough to buy us something we want more than money. Ibrahim's jaw tightened. He had seen men like this before, predators who fed on desperation. His friend's silence told him that whatever deal had been made was not one that could be easily undone. The shorter man wandered toward the back of the workshop, his eyes scanning the shelves. Ibrahim's mind flashed to the key in Malik's pocket. If these men found whatever it opened, things could turn much worse. "I will get the money," the mechanic finally said, "but you have to give me time." Scarface leaned in until their foreheads were almost touching. "You have 3 days." The two men turned and walked back to their truck, their footsteps slow and deliberate, as if they wanted the sound to linger. When the engine roared to life and the truck pulled away, the mechanic exhaled heavily, his shoulders sagging under the weight of unseen chains. Ibrahim stepped closer, his voice steady but cold. "You need to tell me everything, because if you do not, the next time they come, they will not leave empty-handed." The mechanic did not speak immediately. He walked to the workbench, picked up the rag, and began wiping his hands again, even though there was nothing left to clean. It was the kind of movement a man made when he needed to think, but feared the weight of the words he was about to say. Amina and Malik stayed near the doorway, their eyes darting between the two men. Ibrahim motioned for them to wait outside. When they were gone, he turned back to his friend. "I cannot help you unless you tell me the truth," Ibrahim said. The mechanic finally looked up, his eyes tired. "That key Malik took, it belongs to something I should have destroyed years ago." "What does it open?" Ibrahim asked. "A locker, in the old train station storage, near the eastern tracks." He paused, glancing toward the back room. "Inside is a package I was paid to hide. I never asked what was in it. I never opened it. But the men you saw, they know I still have it, and they want it back." Ibrahim's mind raced. Why not give it to them? His friend's voice dropped. "Because now, I know what is inside. I found out last year, when Malik asked me why I was keeping it. I opened it, and I saw photographs, documents, proof of things that could destroy powerful people in this city. If they get it, anyone who knows about it will not live long enough to speak." Ibrahim absorbed the weight of the confession. "So the debt—" "The debt is a leash," his friend interrupted. "They keep me trapped, knowing I cannot pay it. That way, they can come whenever they want, threaten me, remind me of what will happen if I do not hand over the package. I have hidden the key so many times, but Malik found it again this morning. If those men realize he has it—" He trailed off, his jaw tightening. Ibrahim leaned forward. "Then we move it. Tonight." His friend shook his head. "If I even go near that station, someone will see. They have people everywhere. And if they find out you are involved, they will come after you too." "That is my risk to take," Ibrahim said firmly. Before the mechanic could argue, Malik stepped back into the workshop. His eyes were wide, his voice low. "The truck, it is coming back." Both men turned toward the street. The sound of the engine was faint but growing. Ibrahim's instinct sharpened instantly. If the men returned so soon, it meant they either suspected something, or they had found something. The mechanic's hands clenched. "They cannot see that key." Ibrahim looked at Malik. "Give it to me." The boy hesitated only for a moment before reaching into his pocket and pressing the cold metal into Ibrahim's hand. Outside, the truck's tires screeched to a halt. This time, the footsteps that approached were faster. The workshop door burst open before Ibrahim or the mechanic could speak. Scarface stepped in first, his eyes scanning the room like a hawk searching for prey. Behind him came two new men, both younger but carrying the same quiet menace. "You move fast for an old friend," Scarface said, his gaze landing on Ibrahim. "We forgot to mention, our patience is very thin." The mechanic stepped forward, blocking their view of the children again. "You said 3 days," he reminded them. Scarface smirked. 3 days for payment, not for the key." Ibrahim's fingers curled around the small piece of metal in his pocket. He kept his expression calm, his body still. "I do not know what you are talking about," he said evenly. The shorter man from earlier stepped closer to Malik. "You have quick hands, boy." Show us what you took." Malik shrank back, his eyes darting toward Ibrahim for a split second. It was enough for Scarface to notice. "Ah," he said softly, "so it is with you." Before the situation could spiral, Ibrahim pulled the key from his pocket and held it up. "You want this? Then you will listen." The mechanic's eyes widened in shock, but Ibrahim kept going. "I know what it opens. I know what is inside. If you take it, you can bury your enemies or your friends. But if anything happens to this family, I will make sure the contents of that locker end up in the hands of people you cannot silence." The room fell silent. Scarface's smirk faded, replaced by a calculating stare. "You are bluffing," he said, though his voice lacked certainty. Ibrahim stepped forward slowly, closing the distance between them. "Am I? You know the risk. That is why you have not simply killed him yet. But here's my offer. Walk away now, and in 3 days I will bring you the package myself. Untouched." The younger men exchanged glances. Scarface studied Ibrahim for a long moment, weighing the threat against his greed. Finally, he stepped back. 3 days, and if you run. "You will not have to find me," Ibrahim interrupted. "I will find you." Without another word, Scarface signaled his men, and they left as quickly as they had come. The roar of the truck faded into the distance, leaving the workshop in a heavy silence. The mechanic turned to Ibrahim. "You should not have done that." Ibrahim's voice was steady. "I could not stand by while they threatened your children. 3 days is enough to move the package somewhere safe, and make sure they never get it." Malik looked at him, hope flickering in his eyes. "You can really do that?" Ibrahim met his gaze. "I can, but it will not be easy. And once we start, there is no going back." Amina stepped closer, her small voice breaking the tension. "Then we start now." Outside, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the dusty street. Somewhere in the city, the truth waited, locked away, dangerous, and ready to change everything.